Thank you, Prabhu. So we are today going to discuss, share from Canto 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 5 and verse 9. So if this is visible, yeah.
Yes, visible, Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. So can someone repeat after me? Yata dharma tayascharta
यथा धर्मादयास्तथा
munivaryانukirtitaha
मुनिवर्यानुकीर्तितः
न तथा वासुदेवस्य
न तथा वासुदेवस्य
महिमा हि अनुवर्तितः
महिमा हि अनुवर्णितः
यथा यथा धर्मदयश्चार्थ
यथा धर्मदयश्चार्थ
मुनिवर्यानुकीर्तितः
मुनिवर्यानुकीर्तितः
न तथा वासुदेवस्य
न तथा वासुदेवस्य
महिमा हि अनुवर्तितः.
महिमा हि अनुवर्णितः.
Thank you, Mataji. Word meaning and purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Yataha, as much as dharma adaya, all four principles of religious behavior, cha, and artha, purposes, munivar, yeah, by yourself, the great sage, anukirtitaha, repeatedly described. Na, not tata, in that way, Vasudevasya, the personality of God, Sri Krishna, Mahima, glory is he, certainly, anuvartitaha, so constantly described. Translation: although great sage, you have very broadly described the four principles, beginning with religious performances. You have not described the glories of Supreme Personality of Godhead. Uh, it's a short one. I'll just try and read. The prompt diagnosis of Sri Narada Muni is at once declared. The root cause of despondency of Vasudeva was deliberate avoidance of glorifying the Lord in various editions of Puranas. He is certainly, as a matter of course, given descriptions of the glories of the Lord Sri Krishna, but not as many as given to religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and salvation. These four items are by far inferior to the engagement in the devotional service of the Lord Sri Vyasadeva, as the authorized scholar, knew very well this difference, and still, instead of giving importance to the better type of engagement, namely devotional service to the Lord, he had more or less improperly used his valuable time, and thus he was despondent. For this, it is clearly indicated that no one can be pleased substantially without being engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, this fact is clearly mentioned. After liberation, which is the last item in the line of performing religiosity, one is engaged in pure devotional service. This is called the stage of self-realization, or Brahmabhuta stage. After attainment of this Brahmabhuta, one is satisfied. But this satisfaction is the beginning of transcendental bliss. One should progress by attaining neutrality and equality in the relative world. And passing this stage of equanimity, one is fixed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. This instruction of the personality of Godhead is in Bhagavad Gita. The conclusion is that in order to maintain the status quo of Brahmabhuta stage, as also to increase the degree of transcendental realization, Narada recommended to Vyasadeva that he, that is Vyasadeva, should now eagerly and repeatedly describe the path of devotional service. This would cure him from despondency. Let's invoke the prayers before we start discussing a few points on this verse. Om Ajnananta Divinandasya Nananjala Shilakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadati Swapanandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yugapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sakrichatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Litam Shri Vishakhan Vitamsha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vajakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Gurudev ki Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai Hare Krishna. So yesterday we had the verse wherein Mahakrupa Das very nicely told his status why it was Akilam. Akilam, that is Narada Muni. You have not actually broadcasted the sublime spotless glories of personality of God. The philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless. Having said that, he gave us a just doing a quick review of yesterday so that we can, since it's linked to today's, he gave us a very nice, clear difference about why servant and the master, how the understanding in the material world is. And Srila Prabhupada's one important line he picked from there, he said that in order to accept loving service from them, this alone can satisfy. Yes, both the Lord and the living beings. And how we must accept the service given from our leader, even though it is a very menial one. There is nothing and nothing like a menial service or very important service. And he gave very beautiful references how Hanumanji had accepted so many small services and various examples he had given. And our leader Mathurapati Prabhu nicely said Veda Anta. So we really understood what is the Anta. Right now we'll move on to today's verse. Yata dharma dasya charta. That is all the he had given the Narada Muni is first of all doing a diagnosis, right? He was very lucky that his spiritual master had come here. He had done a nice diagnosis, and in this diagnosis, it was very very spot on. He's straight away getting on. The last verse also very very spot on. Here also is further explaining. Narada Muni is saying you have repeatedly glorified, you have not repeatedly glorified Krishna. What you have done is described the four principles. What does he mention here? Four principles of Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, right? What has Srila Prabhupada has given the details also. Religion is given about economic development, making money, right? What do you do once you do some economic money? After religion is given how to make money. So once you start doing this money, what we feel like, okay, we'll have some sense enjoyment, sense gratification. That karma comes in. After that, because of that, we end up in frustration, and then because of excess enjoyment we seek relief, salvation from misery, right? That is what is moksha. Now this is what is explained in most of the Vedic literature. Now there is life beyond moksha. What is that? That which is pure devotional service. You've not glorified Krishna. So one of the lectures I had heard very nicely given a comparison about, so if we are all, imagine you're a patient in the hospital. Now, what do we do to immediately get some relief? We do certain treatment, and the moment that is there, we'll say, okay, fine, great. Now, your that relief is there, so stay put in the hospital. Is that our intention? No, right? We need to get out of the hospital. First, once you get a relief, when you get out of the hospital, and when you get outside, there is a life after that, right? A very dynamic life. Who is going to address it? How are you going to address this? That is very important. That is why he says, Vyasadeva says, yes, you have glorified the Supreme Lord in many others, Puranas, maybe Mahabharata, Vishnu Sahasranama, Narayana, whatever, all this is there. Many scriptures are there, but Narada Muni is pointing out what is his Prabhupada's purport in that. He has written very nicely, last one, that now Vyasadeva should now eagerly and repeatedly describe the path of devotional service. This would cure him from despondency, which means repeatedly and sufficiently you need to glorify Krishna. Uh, Another example I would like to give here. Today we definitely can discuss this example because it is Vadashi. Suppose you all are invited in a for a prasadam feast, right? Obviously, we are very, after all the kirtan, we know that ISKCON nicely, most of the Matajis give us a very nice feast. So, in that feast, if you go in and you sit down, and since most of us are South Indians, I can actually say you get something in the the plantain leaf. We get all this side dish. We get something like salads. These days, salads also of 2, 3 varieties and some achar, many other pineapple gujju and many other things. Right, all the side dishes, small portions we get served. Why I said South Indian is if you really know Madhva or a Iyengar feast, it's usually filled up with more than 10, 15 items of all these only. Then only you get to the main dish. Now, imagine someone is serving like this and serves you a lot of achar, serves you a lot of salad, and say, that's it, standing up, khalo, achhe se khalo. How do you think you will say, Are Baba, where is the main? So I came, you told us that this is the feast. I thought you were going to have your major speciality, either it is Kerala or Andhra speciality. We are waiting for the main dish. So something like that. Here, Narada Vasudev had given a lot of other side information, but he's not described Krishna, who's our master, our main Swami, the father. Okay, this is the main reason for your complete dissatisfaction in the heart. That's why in the last words he said kilam. Kilam means, what does it explain? The word to word mean inferior. That's why you're feeling very some kind of a waste or some kind of an inferiority, um, uh, inferiority position, or the feeling is there. Why? Because you've not given the main thing, okay, which would have given you complete satisfaction. Now, if you notice here, Narada Muni, being a spiritual master, is not flattering his disciple. Okay, see, I agree. We get motivated with our appreciation, right? If everybody is, just imagine a situation, everybody from morning to evening is appreciating you, your family is appreciated, you go into your office, they're appreciating, you come back somewhere, your friends are saying, oh wow, you're great. I mean, I would think it is actually a sad situation. It's a very unfortunate situation because nobody is even doing the correction. Now, why gurus? Because guru itself, as Prabhu always says, it's a very heavy word, heavy responsibility. He has to chastise his disciple. Why? Because he has to take them back home. You cannot have a person, you have to have that disciple in a completely dasanu mood. You cannot have them again a very indisciplined person right in Vaikuntha. There is no space for that. So, and not only that, most important aspect, the spiritual master is a loving father. Okay, is a loving father. Now he's like, how does a father correct a child? He cannot, just because the child asks for like Mathurapati Prabhu always gives an example, maybe a chocolate he'll buy. If you just because the child goes and says, give me some cigarette or some abominable things, you cannot the father will not lovingly do that, right? He will chastise him. Okay, that is what Vyasadeva, that is what Narada Muni is now doing. He's asking Vyasadev, Are, surrender to Krishna. Why are you Guma Pirake bol rahe hain? Just get directly into the message of Krishna. Okay, so that is what Narada, spiritual master Narada Muni's diagnosis is to spot on. Just get directly talk about Krishna. Now, there is this relationship which we need to build with Krishna. Okay. Uh, that is why this entire exercise, I mean, if you see Srila Prabhupada, if you hear any of his lectures, the lectures is so much clearly, he would, there will be at least some of the lectures which I heard, I've only heard Krishna, Krishna, how nicely he keeps on saying. Okay, so it is fine. We talk about Srila Prabhupada, who's maybe built 108 temples, done all this throughout the world, but there is something which he did when almost all the world was sleeping. In the nights, he was really sitting and writing, establishing during his chanting, he was establishing a relationship with Krishna. That's how one incident Giriraj Maharaj was asking, apparently one big donor, saying that particularly to do with the Juhu temple. He said after Srila Prabhupada had left the world and he had gone back to his eternal service, he said, why don't you come and help us? Why don't you become a part of the management of the Juhu temple? He said, this person, well, again, a very well-read and very big senior person with a lot of education, he said, Arey, Srila Prabhupada used to stay in my house, and this entire month he had stayed. Then I realized he was managing the entire ISKCON all your throughout the world. He didn't have a pen, he didn't have a notebook, he didn't have strategies written, nor a laptop with all this. He maintained all that just, and he was very calm. Okay. So he told him, you don't need any management guru or any PhDs. You have to be a ISKCON devotee. You don't need any external help. Okay. That is why you see Srila Prabhupada only could use words like rascal or surrender to Krishna directly. Okay. So the reason I said that is you need to have that relationship. That is what Narada Muni is trying to establish. He's trying to say, focus on the relationship with Krishna. Okay, that has to be dynamically explained. That is why Narada Muni kept on saying, it's like our Hindi, we use this bas bahut ho gaya, ab start kare types, now glorify Krishna, very specific to Vyasdev. So what did Narada Muni wanted Vyasdev to do? Perfectly. If you see, Jagat Shakshi Prabhu nicely says in his explanation, at least the way he explains the mango tree, what we get in mango material world is just a mango covered with skin. We need to clean it, open it. But he says the mango in Vedic in spiritual world is like no outer covering, juice coming out, just flick it. It's nectar dripping. So that is what Narada Muni is giving Vasudeva. Straight get into the subject. It should be oozing with glorifying Krishna exclusively, right? Make Krishna the life and soul, so that by reading this, but that is what we have got today because of his diagnosis and giving the right directions. Glorify Krishna exclusively and make him the life and soul. These are the couple of points which comes out, and of course it is going on and on. His instructions, his diagnosis will be beautiful. So what we saw is today he said enough of 4 points, get down specific. And we just also saw he was guru being not just flattering his disciple. He takes on the responsibility of actually making a correction for his life. Why? For his own betterment. And then there is a deep relationship which we need to build. That is the devotional service. That is again focused on this. These are the few points which I had marked up for today's discussion. If Mathurapati Prabhu, if you have any few points to be added, or we leave this session open for others.
ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಇದೆ. ಹರೇ ಕೃಷ್ಣ.